Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome.
Hi,
I
Jewel.
see some familiar faces.
Long time no see.
Oh, Leora, you know Andrea?
Yeah, we know each other.
In the Zoom world, One day we'll know each other in real life.
That is something you never thought you would say, right? Never.
We did a Zoom bingo. Leora facilitated a Zoom bingo this week. And one of the question was, I have met 3 or more people on this call in real life. And she was like one of the only, there was a lot of people on the call. And she was like one of only 2 people who had met at least 3 people on the call in real life. And in some ways that's super cool because we all have now experienced living in a non-ordinary reality. These boxes.
So wild. Well, welcome everybody. I'd like to bring you back if you've attended the last 2 series. Welcome back, and if this is your first time here for session or training number 3, hello, welcome for the first time. We're here to deliver part 3 of 3 of this equity series facilitated by National Training and Technical Assistance Center for Child, Youth, and Family Mental Health in partnership with Touchstone Health Services and the CARE Coalition. I'll start by saying that the views presented do not necessarily represent THS or HHS. And just to give a little background of how we got here, I know I've mentioned this in the past 2 series, but again, if you're new to number 3, then here's a little insight of how we got here, which we received feedback from our community through our CARE Coalition meetings where our members expressed to us some concerns that they were seeing within their community as well as within the world. In this past year, we've went through a pandemic, we've went through some racial injustices, and then also some mental health adversities that have impacted community growth. So due to that, we have invited today NTAC SBS specialists Leora Wolf Prusen and Oriana Ides. So welcome, thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you. Good afternoon. Oriana and I are so incredibly grateful to be here this afternoon with you. We're so thankful to Yasmina, who is our Connect, who's on our team and also is on your team in many ways, speaking of partnerships. And also want to do a shout out to Carrie, who's our tech support. So if any point you've got tech needs, you can message Carrie and Carrie will help us move through this work. We all know that any learning space like this cannot happen without a strong skeleton, and that is Carrie. So thank you to Carrie. I don't know about all y'all, but this is it's been just a big week, and we've finished a big year. So really welcoming everyone to take a breath, to move body. Oriana and I are we're facilitators who like anyone taking care of yourselves the way that you need to take care of yourselves. So y'all need to be walking around during this conversation. If you want to be doing a headstand, you want to be lying down, whatever you need to do to show up, that's how we want you to show up. So we're so grateful for being here. And as Karina beautifully opened us, our conversation that's joining us today is equity as an action word, and we're focusing our conversation today on community and caregiver partnerships. And all of you have such deep wisdom and knowledge in what it means to be partnered and show up in partnership, both in the what not to do's and the what to do's. And so part of our conversation today is perhaps not to introduce new things, although we hope maybe there might be some new things, but more actually to tap into the wisdom of what you already carry in the world and to do some calibration and sharing. And so our essential question that we're sitting with today is how might we partner with community and caregiver stakeholders to move our school communities towards health equity? How might we partner? So we'll be sitting with that question throughout today, and we're a small and intimate group, so we get the beauty of being able to start, stop, pause, raise hand, unmute. What about that? Leora, you said that thing, and I don't agree with that thing. All those. Please do that. Please do that. And let's move ahead. Welcome to those of you who are just joining us. Okay, we can keep moving because Karina already disclaimed us. Okay, if you are new to NTAC, we are a partner full of partnerships across the country. So we are a constellation of folks across the country who believe deeply in creating systems that are rooted in connecting care for young people and for their caregivers, particularly those who navigate mental health needs and challenges, and also, of course, joys and gifts into this work. And so we're both youth and family oriented. That's why you see Youth Move National and Fredla, and we've got a lot of other folks there. So please join not just our school-based services events, but also all of our other transformation teams. And I know Yasmina just put the website into the chat box. So we're so grateful to be here. Enough about us. Let's move ahead. No, I already did that. Great. Okay. So it's me and Oriana. My name again is Leora, she, hers, based here on Ohlone land in the East Bay, California. I'm about a 15-minute drive from Oriana, and we have seen each other in person. And what brings us to this conversation, and I'm going to start and hand it to Oriana, is actually, and I'm just thinking about this in this moment, Oriana, that we first met through partnership. That Oriana was and is an incredible school leader at June Jordan School for Equity, and I was a school partnership manager at a now not in existence college and career going nonprofit called College Summit, working with young people to be the motors of college and career going culture at high schools. And so we met through that 10 years ago. And as all of you know, in this Zoom, life is a journey of many lives, and relationships, especially those that are full of intention and respect and honor, tend to circle back and cycle back in different ways. So I want to name that what brings me to this work is that I am someone who really cares about how I show up in relationship with others, and try and do my best every day in thinking about not just what does it mean to partner, but what does it mean to find people who have the same vision of justice in this world, so that we don't feel alone in our vision, but that we feel collective and shared. And so that's what brings me to this work. I'm going to invite Oriana to introduce herself and share what brings her to the work. And as we are sharing, we really invite you in the chat box to also share what brings you into this conversation. Oriana.
Sorry, thank you. My name is Oriana Ides, and as Leora said, 15 minutes away from Berkeley. I'm in Oakland, California. I have had so many different experiences as a partner and with partnership in education. I think the most profound is as a parent. I have a 23, almost 23-year-old son, and being a young mother, trying to build partnership with the people he was spending most of the day with, served as huge learning for me also as a teacher. And so I started a small school along with many other amazing people in the community that I grew up in. And I share that in relation to my experience with partnership, because I think it really profoundly impacted how I partner and how I see the value of partnership. As a 23-year-old founding teacher of a small school, I wore many hats, and I also had a bit of a savior complex. I was deeply connected to the outcomes of my young people. Many of them were my close friends, younger siblings, and so I just had this attachment to how they were supported, which caused me to often what I thought was protect them from outside organizations and partnerships, because I could do it better. And over the course of my tenure in education, about 18 years in public schools, I've come to really value partnership and see my students and their families as true partners. not just in kind of theory, but in action. And then also my classroom, my therapeutic space, the school community was much richer and stronger because of partnership. And I've been able to see that in a really visceral way. So thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you, Oriana. And thank you, Karina, for adding in what brings you to this space, becoming a trusted adult for youth who need guidance and support along with community strengthening. And Alexis, you're sharing that what brings you to the space is being able to close the gap in health education for youth, for young people, and doing that. And we know that those gaps are structurally designed. So creating partnerships to close the structural design that leads us to feel separated and also leads us to feel like we are not interdependent and connected. Yasmina is offering the hope and dreams of ancestors who've sacrificed so much to get an access to education. So some of us are entering this conversation knowing Touchstone. Some of us are entering the conversation as providers. We're on staff, we're Touchstone staff. Some of us are entering the conversation because we're school partners like Andrea. Some of us are entering the conversation because we ourselves are caregivers and we ourselves feel partnered or unpartnered with schools. And also we probably have, like Oriana just shared, 70 million hats that bring us to this conversation, right? In one moment I'm a partner, in one moment I'm a parent, in one moment I'm a caregiver, in one moment I'm a provider. And so every single hat that you enter this conversation with is needed. And our invitation is for you to be intentional about which hat you're speaking from when you're sharing, especially when we're in small group. Okay, we've got more folks joining, so welcome if you're just joining us, Leora and Oriana. Okay, thank you, Cicely. So we've got to create and adapt and learn and implement independent, open-minded youth to bring a holistic approach for a positive future. Cicely, that is a vision statement for your dissertation in life. Into it, very into it. I think that should be like the running Zoom text at the bottom. That is a thing. Okay. So we are hopeful that today's conversation is strength-based, that we are not here to tear down the partnerships that exist or to critique partnerships that are unhealthy or harmful. We want to identify what might be contributing to them, but we want to also really center that we're all here with exactly the purpose that you're naming in the chat box. We're also here to be both healing centered and trauma responsive. So you'll hear us weave in trauma informed principles throughout the whole conversation of safety and trustworthiness and collaboration and mutuality and cultural humility. We want to invite you to also that top right font, which is the tiniest font in the world, maybe a little bit eyeball squint, to invite individuals that you're participating in your own journey. So some of us might feel like we are really, really well versed in partnerships, and some of us might just be learning the language, but we have the experience. So wherever you are is exactly where you are, and so much more. And I also want to offer, this is being recorded, that small breakout groups will not be being recorded, that you have the PDF for this, and that there are many handouts, and Oriana and I are here for you after the session. If you're like, whoa, you said that thing and it made me think of a thing and I need a thing to talk about the thing of the things. Because, you know, 90 minutes, we're going to get partnerships and equity just chick chat taken care of. Not so much. We're going to get some conversation lifted up, and we're here to extend the learning moving forward. Okay, let's move into our day. So we're gonna start with a opening and welcome. Oriana will lead us in a settling. We'll do a community connector, and then we're gonna really unpack this idea of power and partnerships. In the conversation of health equity, the foundational concept of inequity and equity is the word power, and especially under consent, under partnership, is really talking about consent. Where do we have permission to be in partnership? Where do we feel like we're being partnered at versus partnered with? And how do we move in our world to being a power with, to being from a power over, which is often what we feel like both in our social identities and in our work identities. And then we'll get to do some reflection, integration, and close, and everything will be taken care of all at the end. Rainbows and butterflies. No. Okay. We're going to get as much unearthed as possible in our time together. Let's move, Carrie. Okay. So just to name again the sessions that you have potentially been at in the first two series, like Karina opened with, that we're using the words health equity to talk about the opportunity for everyone to attain full health potential. And when Oriana and I say health potential, we are inviting us to be in shared definition that it is not just physical health, but emotional health, spiritual health, social health, psychological health, financial health, all the healths of all the health. And you can have that definition to also refer to. And if at any point in time, your colleague or me or Ariana that we're using an acronym or a term that you'd like some clarification, please feel free in the chat box to stop, drop, and roll and let us unpack that so that we're not using language that blocks us being in partnered language. Okay. Ariana, it's all you.
All right, so we wanted to provide a moment to settle in. And in this settling in, I'd like to invite us to also call into our awareness partnership we are engaged in. The first partnership being in partnership with ourselves. And then I'll provide a few ripples out. And so this activity is called Metta. It's an offering of love and kindness. It's an opportunity to intentionally think about the positive energy that we want to engage in partnership with, the good intention. And so I invite you to follow my my lead if you feel comfortable in doing so. You can turn your camera off if it's on right now, or you don't have to. You can close your eyes right now if you would like to, or you don't have to. You can lower your gaze. And I invite you to call awareness to yourself, your physical body, your breath. Relax your jaw, maybe, if that is something that feels inviting to you. Relax your shoulders. Notice your feet and your calves. Allow ease to wash over them. Find tranquility wherever you can in this moment. Notice your belly. Feel your breath warm your belly with every inhale. Bring awareness to your heart center and to yourself. With me, recite, may I be happy, may I be well, may I be safe, may I be peaceful and at ease. I invite you to take a deep inhale, and with the next exhale, bring a deeply respected comrade or beloved student, family partner to mind as vividly as you possibly can. Think of their good qualities. Feel your connection to them and your liking for them. Imagine a shining light from their heart to yours. Recite to yourself, may they be happy, may they be well, may they be safe, may they be peaceful and at ease. With your next inhale, call attention now, maybe to a community member that feels difficult to love, difficult to hold. This can be either an immediate or district office member, a student, a partner, someone that you struggle to collaborate with. Make effort to see their humanity, their good. Anger, grief, or sadness may arise. Don't judge these feelings or allow them to settle. Only note them as signs that your heart is softening, revealing what is held there. With whatever patience, acceptance, and kindness you can muster for such feelings, now direct loving kindness towards them. Recite to yourself, may they too be happy. May they be well. May they be safe. May they be peaceful and at ease. With our last collective breath, I invite you in this final stage of metta to think of all three people together. Yourself, a deeply respected comrade or beloved student, and your hard to hold person. Now extend your feelings of loving kindness further to everyone around you, to everyone in your working community, your school district, your town, our country, and so on throughout the world. Allow these waves of loving kindness to wash over them. Recite to yourself, may we be happy, may we be well, may we be safe, may we be peaceful and at ease. With your next inhale, our last inhale collectively together, I invite you to maybe call a word that captures your physical sensation right now. Maybe share that word with us in the chat. Raise your gaze if it's lowered, open your eyes if they're closed. Find your feet, find your fingers, find the keyboard, turn your camera back on. Thank you. Warm, calm, content, relaxed, vulnerable, open yet sad, maybe some grief, maybe some connection. It's the word I offer. Thank you for going there. Thank you for spending those 3 minutes to intentionally think about who we're connected to and maybe the energy we receive, we bring to those connections. Thoughtful, focused, beautiful. We can turn to the next slide. So continuing that, we thought of a few partnerships and our partnership with the world. We'd like you to spend some time creating a word cloud with us. There is a tool called Menti that we're going to be using that you will see come up for you. And we'd like to take a few moments for you to just dump, brainstorm, drop into Menti all of the partnerships and configurations you're currently a part of. The link is in the chat. You click on that link and you'll see the question.
And Carrie, I think we're waiting, Carrie, for you to open the voting so we can all insert.
Okay, give me just a second here. Sorry about that.
No worries. If there are any questions so far, you can ask them about this, but there's a link in the chat, and once you click on it, there'll be an open portal poll for you to share all of the partnerships that you're currently a part of, the configurations, so how you define them.
Yeah, still not open. So maybe time purposes.
Maybe.
Oh, wait, it just opened. The
Sorry.
It's opened. Okay.
Is it open now? Okay,
Yes.
sorry about that.
So you should all be able to enter words, and we should start to see some of the words populate. So it's all the partnerships and configurations you're part of up to your own definition.
Okay. Let's see. So once people press submit, we will see it populate in the slide.
I think you might need to turn on show voting. Because I pressed submit, I think.
Oh,
I'm gonna just switch screens real quick.
hey,
There we go. Thank you.
lovely. Thank you so much. All right. So as people are continuing to enter the partnerships that they're a part of, maybe the first 10 that come to mind or up to 10 that come to mind, we see them getting bigger based on how many people shared the same partnership that they're a part of. So Boys and Girls Club, huge. I've been a partner with the Boys and Girls Club as a parent. Family, youth, daughters, our own children, marital partnerships, our parents, civic, relational partnerships through volunteer work, Southwest Behavioral, Mountain Park Health, different community-based organizations. So as this is populating, as you finish, we invite you to give these partnerships a glance. I'm reading some of them out. We see family getting larger and larger. What do you notice? You know, what is their present? What is big, meaning repeated, and maybe what's even missing? Schools, school clinics, okay, college and career CBOs, community members, counselors, parents. There's so much to unpack when we say schools. As a community-based mental health service provider, one of the hardest partnerships that I've had to form in my life was with other teachers, even though I had spent so much of my time as a teacher. There was a lot of guarding that I experienced. All right, so I'm gonna, we're gonna keep these partnerships in mind. We're gonna do some work with them, thinking about the ways we engage with our partners, the values we step into a partnership with, how to create more equitable and joint holding with our partners. I'm gonna pass it over to Leora.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm so curious also, as Carrie brings up the next slide, I'm curious, as folks, when you were saying family, did you mean family, your own partnerships with other family members, or partnering with families? Those actually could be two different things. So happy for you to provide some clarity in the chat or out loud. And that might come up in our conversation, right? I know I put daughter as a partner because I often feel like being a daughter is a whole other kind of partnership. Yeah, both, exactly, Jennifer, both. Yeah. So some of us were saying family, both in our own family relationships and also partnering with family. Beautiful. Okay, so let me know by raise of hand if this is a familiar visual to you. This is a visual that actually comes out of thinking about the teacher-student partnership. And I just want to name that most of what we have learned, especially in the family engagement or caregiver and community partnership engagements field in the scholarship world, stems from the youth and adult or student and educator partnership world. So a lot of the models just need some replaced language, which you'll see us play with today. Part of when we are thinking about health equity, and as we rooted our conversation in is the conversation around power, is that under power is the feeling, choice, and voice that is a trauma-informed principle. And so oftentimes in replace of talking about health equity, we might even talk about like health voice equity. Or if we're talking about power, we might actually think about like, what does it mean to have voice and choice and agency in our own relationship with who we partner with or who is partnered to us or at us or with us. This conversation is one for us to get a little bit more discerning about when we say partnership, What do we actually mean by saying partnership? And so I'm curious, as we take a little bit of time to do some eye gaze over this model from expression up to leadership, where does partnership fall and what strikes you as you take a look at this model? Where does partnership fall and what strikes you? And again, of course, you can replace teacher with community-based organization, young person with family and caregiver. What do you notice about what this visual is offering us to consider? Okay, Karina is saying growth. Karina, would you be open to unmuting and sharing like 1 or 2 sentences about what you mean by that?
It seems like it starts off with sharing some things, and then you kind of get together with somebody, so like that participation, and then maybe you build on action, which is calls that partnership, and then you start doing the action, and then maybe by leadership you're at the front face of whatever that action is. So it seemed like a bit of growth happened there.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so there's a spectrum of different ways in which power is shared and held and exchanged and witnessed and validated. And part of what, Karina, you are addressing, in both Jennifer and Cicely and Jewel and Alexis having a hot conversation in the chat box, is that the singularity that might be felt in expression or consultation, say that word 7 times fast, starts to expand into more collectiveness, into a collection. And Jewel, I really appreciate that noting the progression moves from the I into the we, as we move from expression into leadership. And this term partnership kind of sandwiches in the middle, that some of our partnerships are really rooted in collaboration and in contribution. Those are 2 words that we're hoping to consider, that partnerships are about both equal exchange and equitable exchange. And some of what we might have just called partnerships when Oriana led us through that word cloud may have been actually more participation related, or more consultation related, or more activism and leadership related. So we're going to be using this word partnership, but really encourage us to think about, when I'm using the word partnership, is it actually a true partnership? And what does it mean to me? And what does it mean to the person with whom I'm in relationship with? Because of our different cultural lenses, we might be approaching a partnership with a different power lens and a different power dynamic. I'm curious if anyone else has anything they would like to state and share and just note before we move into our exercise. Yeah, so Yasmina's noting that leadership is at the last stop on this continuum. And sometimes we're using the word leadership, but we actually might mean participation. We're using the word leadership, but we actually mean consultation. Yeah. So partnership is this kind of middle in the sandwich. Okay. And any last calls? We're going to move into our exercise in a second. Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, let's shift. So we're about to invite you to do a little bit more investigation into this idea of collaboration and contribution. And Carrie, if you don't mind shifting. Yeah, okay. So we're going to invite you into small groups, about 3 groups of new colleagues and new collaborators and new partners, even in this group. And our invitation is that we're going to have 25 minutes, and we mean it when we say it, 25 minutes. And each of those 5 minutes has a specific boundaried role. So when you get into your small groups, we're going to invite you to take 5 minutes to introduce yourselves and say hi to one another, and to identify who wants to be the discussion director, who wants to be the timekeeper, and who wants to be the scribe. So the person who's inserting into the Jamboard. What I'm going to invite folks to do right now is to open the link that I just put in the chat box. And Carrie, I'm going to swap out with you. Yep, thank you. So I'm going to swap out with you. And what I'm inviting you to do, oops, someone just moved that, is that the first poster, so this is, imagine we're in a room together and there are poster boards all over the room. The first poster is, again, the reminder of our prompts. What you'll do then is that the first 5 minutes, everyone will just input the answers to this question. How do families and caregivers view community-based clinics and organizations? And if you're Touchstone, you could even do a deep dive and you could say, how do you think that families and caregivers view Touchstone? Or if you're in schools, how do families and caregivers view your school as an organization? And if you move your cursor over to where you can see an arrow on the left-hand side, there's like a little sticky note. You actually can press the sticky note and you can write in the sticky note and save in it, and it will post up there. And then if y'all want to get super fancy, you can even check off if you see another group put a post-it that you really agree with, or you can put comments to each other. So each prompt will get 5 minutes. And in your small groups, we're going to ask you to just monitor yourself. So that's the first prompt. Then you'll move to the second prompt. So you can move that cursor right above, and it says, how do community-based clinics and organizations view families and caregivers? So the opposite. How do we at Touchstone view families and caregivers? How do we as schools view families and caregivers? The third question is, there's a little bit more. What interactions, approaches, practices, and policies have you experienced in clinic or caregiver meetings? And you can replace clinic with school that would not be helpful to building strong and healthy partnerships. And then the last question is, what interactions or approaches and practices and policies have you experienced that are helpful? Okay, so I'm gonna invite you, I'm gonna go back to this first poster, and Carrie will break us out into small groups. Again, the reminder is the first 5 is introducing yourselves and jumping in to different roles and to kind of go over what we're asking you to do. And then you can move into the questions. And we'll come back in exactly 25 minutes from right now. And Oriana and I will pop in to make sure everyone is on the right page. All right, rock and roll, have fun. No wrong answer. Go for it. All right, so Alfredo, Andrea, Lydia. Oh, hello, we're recording. Welcome back. Whoever's voice that is. Woof. Oriana, do you want me to share my screen so we can look at the posters together?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel really privileged to be in a conversation, listening to the honesty, the vulnerability, the perception and experience shared in the small group. And we wanted to give some time for 2 things, for you to, as Lyra was sharing, have a glance at what everyone else contributed visually, but we want to also have a conversation as a full group around some things that came up for you, some questions, aha moments, some lingering wondering. So if we could just spend a quiet minute perusing the 4 slides, so slide 2 through 5 with each prompt on it, and then pose a question for us to discuss.
Oriana, will you let me know when you want me to shift?
Yes, you can shift. I actually think if you can, feel free to, the link is in the chat at the bottom of the chat. Feel free to peruse it on your own as well. You can go to the next slide.
I'm being a bad Vanna right now. Y'all, this is so powerful. Oh, this one is, I know, Oriana, I know we're not debriefing yet, but I'm having this is a lot.
The last slide.
Hmm.
Beautiful. So we want to give some space now in a few minutes to talk about what these mini conversations invite you to wonder about your current partnerships. As you engaged in the conversation and are looking at the responses from other members of this community right here, what do you wonder?
I don't know if we're okay to just say it out loud, but I think something that is that there's still gaps that we need to fill, and just being aware that, you know, there's always going to be that room to fill. We're not always going to get it the first time, and knowing that there are going to be those struggles, but how can we overcome those? How can we be solution focused on them too?
Mhm.
Brianna, a word that I really like and that it's actually I've been sitting with all week is the word wonder. And I was just talking to my mom about it because sometimes we're not invited to bring wonder
Mhm.
into the systems or what we're asked to do. And so the wondering that I'm sitting with is when I looked at especially those, it was obvious that there was a lot of harm that has been perpetuated on both sides. And so my wondering is how much of our inability to connect is because we haven't healed the harm on both sides, or because the systems that we work for or the systems that we represented haven't fully accounted for that harm. And what would that look like? That's what I'm sitting with.
Mhm. Thank you, Yasmina, for sharing that. I don't think, and Alexis, I think there's a lot of connection between what you both shared. And in order to arrive to a place of wonderment, I think that there's a weighted sense of responsibility we can have around not doing the right thing or making error that can prevent seeing an alternative, that can really muddle a relationship. And what I heard you share, Alexis, is that, you know, we do misstep sometimes, and that there always is room for improvement and growth and learning. And really that wonderment, which is counter to the way systems operate, is necessary. What are other people thinking about, feeling, wondering after being a part of your mini conversation or looking at the other pages or other responses?
I'm wondering if we could hear about on poster 4. There's reaction to someone who put that there's a lack of cultural brokers. Families see us as experts and we want to be seen as partners. And I'm curious if we can talk about a little bit. Andrea, I see you nodding your head. I'm curious if you'd be open to sharing about that.
You know, am I unmuted, you guys? Can you hear me? I was just thinking of myself, and I apologize, you know, I'm at a school, I'm at the district level, but I do think of when I think of the Touchstone, my Touchstone crew, I think, oh my gosh, they're my experts. And I'm sorry that I think that, but I do believe that. And that's the way our admin believe, if Touchstone's going to present, like they're excited about it, the staff are excited about it. But we need to think of them I think of them as partners too, but I think that they help us to bring that change that we want to bring, and they have more expertise than us. And but I got to change that mind shift because we're all growing together. But I'm just being honest, I do think of them as our experts.
I think it's important to think of your partners as experts, right? As parents, or caregivers as experts, and that we maybe are not experts over, but experts with, and you have an expertise as well, and an ear to the ground and a knowing that they don't have. And how do we bring what we know and our authority of knowledge, that's a good thing, to the table together.
Yeah, and I just want to kind of in that conversation, and well, I appreciate that. I think of you and our school partners as experts, and I think what I always try to thrive is like that partnership. Like when that continuum at the beginning of this presentation, I was like, that's where I try to get us to, is that leadership where we're tackling things together with a shared vision, because each of us are going to bring certain expertise, if you will, but I don't think anybody understands there's that systems approach, right? And so I think that it's important to have all those voices in order to really make that change we want to see. And so that's my thing. But I think as we've gotten better, I think as far as that goes with a lot of our schools and community partners, but I do think I felt in my group really challenged of how do we do a better job doing that with parents and caregivers? Because I do think that, there's just so much, sometimes barriers or concerns, or they have so many obligations and stress and past trauma and cultural, like everything that everyone mentioned. And so it gets overwhelming, because then it's like, how do we overcome that to help serve these kids? Mm-hmm. So. Mm-hmm.
Together. Yeah. I think what you're offering and what Cicely is offering in the chat, these questions around what the shifts might become or be, is connected to the question 3. And we have just a few more seconds before we move into conversation again. In a different configuration, but what are the small and big ways you might be able to influence and or shift how families and caregivers experience your services? And Erica, what comes to mind is, that long list of challenges that that we see when we think about families, that we feel and experience. Like on the other side of that are amazing strengths that we can, find ways to let shine and bring into the partnership.
Yeah, and we're going to move into a little bit more theory or framework, and then get into some closing discussion. And again, we warned you there's going to be a lot more unearthed in this session than maybe earthed, which is all part of the work. And as Hannah's saying, building relationships, part of, if we're coming at it from a health, equity, and justice lens, the missing piece oftentimes is being clear about the adjective that we want to be in. We want to be in healthy and humanizing relationship. We want to be in healing-centered relationships, right? Because oftentimes we'll say, oh, we want to be in relationship with each other, but so much harm happens in relationship. So if we can be clear about what kind of relationships we want to be in, and how power is felt in those relationships, that might move us to bridging that, Erica. I'm using that bridge analogy like you lifted. Okay. Semicolon. Everyone see the semicolon? This is me making a hand semicolon, which is not really that, but it's something. We're going to shift. Carrie, if we can go to the next piece. Next slide. Yeah, okay. So listen, this might be a whole, Yasmina, this might be like a whole other full group conversation we can have as an NTech community. But part of what I wanted to offer Touchstone and your community-based partners is that there are so many different frameworks to think about community and family and partnerships. So the one that we started off with at the beginning is the one all the way to the right. It's called the Spectrum of Student Voice from Students at the Hub. It was actually developed by and with students, exactly as Hannah and some of you were saying. The one that we're going to spend a little bit of time in is the one on the left, which is Hart's Ladder. And I think some of you might be familiar with Hart's Ladder. Hart's Ladder actually was created in 1992 at the UN by this dude named Roger Hart, who I'm sure wants to be called a dude. No, this guy named Roger Hart, who was thinking about in the 90s, like, okay, we're talking about this being the year of the child or the year of the young person globally, and we don't have a framework to understand what are we doing with children, for children, or at children. And so he created this this kind of ladder called Hart's Ladder, which then got adapted by this other dude named Adam Fletcher. We need non-dudes to do even more adaptation in 2011. And for us to start to think about how is power felt across all the spectrum of relationship, from manipulation to decoration and tokenization, up to shared decision-making and initiation. And so again, I'm going to invite us to replace the word student with community or caregiver or partner. And there will be lots of reading if you get nerdy and deliciously excited about this. More reading after this to carry on your learning. But I want to show you a couple ways that this might come up. So Carrie, can we move forward? Okay. So we're double clicking into this idea of youth voice and community voice and family and caregiver voice as it relates to partnership. And part of what, 1994, not 1992. And part of what we're thinking about as we're talking about health equity, again, is where are we in the spectrum of relationship? And I just want to remind us that every single relationship, depending on time and context and day and experience of crisis or trauma, might change. So Erica and I might be usually in a relationship of equal partnership, and then there might be a context that might move us into a feeling of tokenization or decoration. And so the reminder is that this model feels potentially linear, but it's actually very dynamic and messy, if that makes sense. So I'm just inviting you into a little bit of messiness for a second. Okay, so basically what I did when I used to work at this organization called WestEd, and what I did with my colleague, Dr. Christina Pate, is we took the ladder of participation and we mapped it on to what it could look like with family partnership and what it could look like in the context of consent. And so in your handout bucket, where it says main handouts, you actually have the text of where it was published and the models so that you can play around with it. But the idea right now is to think about, like, what would manipulation look like with families in the context of health and well-being? What would equity look like in the context of family wellness and well-being? So I'm going to show you a couple, and then we're going to get into some discussion. And of course, feel free always to ask questions and get down with it. Okay, let's roll. Let's move ahead. Okay, there's a lot of font. Don't get no tiny font fear. Just want everyone to walk us through that. What you'll see is that on the left-hand side is that rung of the quality of participation, which is Hart's language, but consent, because we're talking about health equity, right? We're talking about power sharing. And so if you go all the way to that family driven, I'm curious if someone might read out number 8 for us, where it says families actively identify their own. Someone be open to reading that out?
I will.
Yeah, Jennifer.
All right.
So,
why not? I feel completely out of my element right now. Okay, families actively identify their own students' wellness and support system needs, approaches, and services, and invite school site leadership to partner with them throughout the process. Any school action is family-centered and responsive.
Okay. Thank you. You are exactly in your element. So the piece there that you might hear, what comes up for you when you hear that language that Jennifer just read out loud?
The parents are doing the driving. It's their energy.
The parents are doing the driving. Yep. And if you then move down the ladder, yeah, family-centered, and not even only family-centered, but family-driven, right? Family-initiated. Like, oh, this is how I define what wellness looks like for my family, and this is how then I'm going to design how I'm getting it. Some of us then we might move into rung 7, which is young people lead and initiate action. And I'm going to read this out for time purposes. It sounds like this: families initially identify their wellness and support system needs, and then determine what services and approaches they'd like to access. So we have some like, okay, I'm going to identify and initiate versus like, I have my own framework of wellness. So it might mean that Touchstone or that the school districts that you partner with introduce what health, equity, and wellness might feel like, and then families make decisions from there. Okay. We're going to bump all the way down to rungs 1 through 3. So yeah, we're going to bump all the way down to rung 1, which is the opposite of this, manipulation. And I'm curious if maybe Andrea might read manipulation. So it'll say schools have complete and unchallenged authority.
Schools have complete and unchallenged authority to abuse their power if that happens, enforcing or coercing families to receive services. Any ideas families offer about their experiences of support systems and wellness services are used for school gain. School site leadership share young people's and their families' wellness and support system needs and information without permission. And that happens all the time.
Mhm.
All the time, right? And I want to be really clear that the reason that the word manipulation is used is because there's some trickery involved. Partner with us, share your information, share your vulnerable information, and then we're going to use it. Right? Yeah.
Right now?
No. I'm saying
Oh.
that's what it might sound like and feel like. No, I'm not manipulating you. No. Okay. Carrie, can we go back 1 slide to 2 and 3? Yeah, okay, this is really small font. So the only thing I want to introduce is that there's ways that we can think about how might we be living into decorating? So how might we be like, we partner with families and caregivers and we take pictures with them when they come to our center, or we have family day and we use it to get funding, but they may not actually feel like they're authentically partnered. And I'm not saying this about Touchstone, I'm saying this about like all the different ways that I have decorated students and families, my own self in my own practice. And then rung 3 is tokenism, which is that there's maybe a limited voice, but again, we are referring to that voice in order for us to maintain our power and status quo as systems or as providers. So the piece that I want to offer, and again, I know that Carrie, if you might move to the like 1 down. Yeah, okay. So, right, nope, that, okay. The piece that I wanted just to offer is that if in your, when you check out the reading and the handout, you start to see this ladder, that it is an illusion that is linear. Oh, I'm gonna try and move from manipulation to the highest form, and it's gonna be that way all the time. And we know it isn't, especially because of structural violence and because of crisis and chaos and trauma, that oftentimes power dynamics get really blurry and messy because of all different contexts. And what Oriana and I are inviting you into is to think about how might you create shared language, even across partnerships, to actually call each other back into healthy and equitable relationship, right? So that y'all can be like, oop, I'm feeling a little manipulation right now, or oop, I'm feeling really shared decision-making right now. And so part of creating trauma-informed cultures is having that shared language to be able to hold each other into loving accountability and into loving partnership. Okay, that was a lot. Oriana and I have we have gifts for you of to-dos, gifts for you of potential to-dos after this, because we had a whole spotlight activity, but then the poster board got so super rich and juicy, we let that run. Carrie, I'm going to invite you to move to slide 27 after the spotlight. Woo. Okay, no, 1 more back. Thank you. So I'm going to invite you right now to land on what question do you need to sit with in your practice to move towards equitable power with relationships. And I'm going to invite you to put it into the chat box so that we can all hold each other in loving accountability. And I'm going to do it too. So if you, Oriana, would you mind reading some out so that folks who
I'll unmute. Yes, definitely. So in reflecting on the work I do personally, how much power do family and caregivers have? In reflecting on the services my institution provides, how much influence does family and caregivers have? In reflecting on the systems in which my services are delivered, how much influence do family and caregivers have? How do the realities of where family and caregivers are today on the latter align with where I want them to be?
Thank you. So Alexis is inviting us into holding Alexis accountable into sitting with question 3 and Yasmina in question 2. Curious for other folks where, okay, Erica is inviting us into accountability for question 1. Okay, so Karina and Erica, you might be each other's accountability partners. As always, Karina says no. Okay. Oh, good. Andrea and Yasmina, accountability partners. Yeah, Cicely, question 4. Beautiful. This is awesome, y'all. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Jennifer has a question mark. Does that mean you would like, do you need, what's the question mark about, Jennifer? Oh, went off screen.
No,
Unmute.
I'm wondering, I don't know which one to take on, you know, I'm just like,
Cool.
I don't know.
Cool.
So just start at the beginning.
The one to take on is usually the one that is the most confusing or the one that you least want to sit with. So for me, I generally like that question number 1, how much power do family and caregivers have in the work that I do personally? That's a tricky one for me. And so that's the one that I want to sit with. Right. Usually the questions that make you go like, oh, are the ones that we have to do the work with.
Well, I don't feel like I have the power to change the systems. That is the problem, I find.
Yeah.
I'm not in power.
Yeah. We all are in power. We may just not be feeling like we have institutional power.
Yes.
So even in that share, Jennifer, there's an invitation for us to maybe the work is not any of these questions, but maybe it's for you to sit with what ways might you have influence over how families and caregivers and community live in relationship with each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And how is your power amplified when you're together? And so maybe individually or as an organization, your power isn't as forceful as if it were in partnership with families, caregivers.
Oriana. Yeah. Okay. Somehow this 90 minutes went by very fast, at least for us. And so we have a couple takeaways for you. Oriana, is it okay if I lead through that, or do you want me?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So one takeaway is that you'll get in the deck that there's and in the Jamboard that we've set up a spotlight reflection for you to think about what do you want to stop doing, what do you want to consider, and what do you want to keep doing. And that you might do as a team, as in relationship with partners, with families in the room. I think, who was it, Hannah? Someone said, how would students, yes, Hannah, how would students feel, or families and youth feel about this conversation, I just want to offer that in a 2-day training that I've done this with before, we've done the exact same posters on one side of the room with families and caregivers, and the exact same posters with providers, and then they've answered and then swapped to see where there was similarity and where there was difference. And it's really powerful to start to build and bridge perspective. You actually might be really in alignment and you don't even know it, right? So we're in our last minute, and Carrie, I wanted to just offer, if you can move to the next slide, that if we had 5 more minutes, we might be able to do this together. But in order to integrate our learning, Oriana put together this, like, create a 12 or 6-word story for you about consensual partnership and shared power. And so that might even be what you might do as a closeout as we start to close. Kind of put together a 6-word story. I don't know, Oriana, if you want to say anything about your example.
No, the word together was really like important to me as I was thinking about what word I wanted to use for my story. But
yeah, nice. So if you feel open to it, of kind of putting in a 6-word after all that we just went through today, what 6 words come to mind, what story of your learning, or if that's too much, because there's been a lot, you might even put in a, like, one thing that you are walking away with, a question for yourself, a takeaway, an aha, an eyebrow scratch, a spicy Cholula moment, whatever is coming up for you. And I think Oriana and I are so grateful to have been invited in, and we know that we introduced a lot of richness and that this work is not done. It's just in the continuum of conversation. And we're really grateful. We'll stay on for about 5 minutes afterwards. I know Carrie has an evaluation link, and so that will also help us get to what follow-up you'd like. And Karina and Erica, we're totally down to meet with you to do some coaching around, like, where you might take this work moving forward. But I want to just close with ending with some of the words that are coming up. So Hannah's got partnerships. Nice, Hannah, on the nose, on the nose. Oriana and I are glad that you're ending with partnerships after our session on partnerships. No, I'm just kidding. Erica's shared power, parents as equal partners. Andrea, continuing working in partnership to serve our community to the best of our ability. And Jennifer, change what I say and how I say it. Curiosity and inquiry to lead to partnerships. Jennifer, who thinks that you don't have power. Come on with that powerful question. Okay. Oriana, anything that you'd like to add before we close out? That was a no.
oh, that was a no. Yes. Respect your time. Yeah, just very grateful to be able to listen in.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I want to say thank you, Oriana, for leading us through such a meta exercise of thinking about loving ourselves and even loving the folks who are hard to love. That in itself is the practice of partnership. Thank you, Touchstone. We'll end on a let's listen to each other so our communities can thrive. Amen. Thank you so much. We'll send out this Jamboard so you have it. We're so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Good to see you.